Cool Jobs Podcast.
You're like, where's Saskatoon?
Follow Cool Jobs Podcast on Instagram at Cool Jobs Podcast.
You know 10 NHL players.
The Cool Jobs Podcast is brought to you by Crown Jewel Recruitment.
Please tell me there's video. Is there video of this? If there is, we're going to insert some right here on the podcast.
Oh, we can do it live.
This is the Cool Jobs Podcast with your host, Johnny Jasno.
Boom, here we are again. I see him right there. I cannot wait to talk to him. Welcome to the Cool Jobs Podcast, brought to you by Mark Curtis at Crown Jewel Recruitment. Looking for a job? Mark and his team have opportunities in several industries and segments. Whether it's finance, sales, engineering, supply chain, or executive, Mark is able to provide the process that identifies top talent and will get you hired. Check out all the job listings, crownjewelrecruitment.com, or search him on LinkedIn. RyMy, you need a job?
I'm sold on whatever. Just, man, you give me a job, man. Whatever you just said there, it's like you've done that
a few
before.
times, a couple times. Our guest today on the Cool Jobs Podcast is Ryan Maier, aka RyMy. Ryan has been all over the place in terms of music, in terms of radio. You've done so much. We have lots to talk about. Ryan, I guess just basically right now, what is your overall, I guess, day-to-day job? And then what do you guys like really do with Whale and the Wolf? And that's really what I want to get into today.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously Whale and the Wolf, that's a big priority in my life and what we do. And I've been lucky enough to be able to obviously pursue that, pretty hardcore. Obviously with COVID, you need to have like active employment to pay a mortgage and all that. So I've been lucky and blessed enough to have a job that I have that is sort of like deemed in the it's a support service for sort of like what would you call them these days? And like basically like grocery stores and medical centers and everything. So our job was deemed sort of like you can go in, you can do your thing. We never had to like stop down, and I never had to work from home. I got to go into a job every single day and do my work from there and whatnot. So it really, I mean, aside from obviously all the things that happened with COVID that shut the band down and everything like that, and like, stymied that whole realm of my life, like the job that I have, I'm working at like a stainless steel custom shop. So we do a lot of work that's custom stuff for restaurants and for hospitals and for grocery stores. And, unless you start looking around for stainless steel, you'd never think about it, but it's honestly like everywhere. So a lot of the essential services needed us to continue to build so that we could supply them with things that they needed to keep doing their job and keep everybody fed and healthy in hospitals and all that stuff. So
before we move on, these lights behind you, what's going on here? Is this your house?
Yeah. So I was saying to you before we hopped on here, this was the reason we bought this house. Is because like we came in here and they like, we're suckers for this sizzle. You go to a place that sells fajitas and you're like, oh, they come out with those steaming.
You always want one.
Like, wow, I want that. Yeah. So they basically like, as soon as we walked in and we saw these blue lights, we're like, yeah, this is our house. We're buying it. They do go away from the sex party blue. They do. They'll go to like a standard white so we can live our day to day. But I thought that, I'm doing a podcast with Johnny. I'm going full on with this. I lit some candles in the background.
I love it.
That's for you. That's for you. And
you
got the blue lights going on.
Probably paid 20 grand over asking, hey?
Oh, 100%, man. I'm, like I said, sucker for the sizzle. Like, give me that. What do you want for the house? We'll pay double.
That's awesome.
Foundations.
with back to Whale the Wolf. Were you guys, you said you had to pay the mortgage. Were you ever borderline, we're going to do this full time and like quit a day job?
It was getting to the point when we were going into 2020 and we had an EP recorded the year before in 2019 that we were gearing up to like put a full on like tour together that would have spanned a month, 2 months, whatever the hell. I think sort of with Canadian artists and, artists in general, even outside of COVID times, Canadian artists, big time, like you need to have something else that's keeping the lights on no matter what. Like I would say that 95% of Canadian artists have something else going on. Like we played a couple shows this summer with some bigger Canadian acts that like, you're like, they've been on the radio. They had, giant hits in the 90s and the mid 2000s and whatnot. And you're talking to them and they're like, they're a real estate agent back home in, Ontario, So, and I think that they just always have had something that they've needed to fall back on and it's not always necessarily in the music industry. It's sort of like I said, putting food on the table, but it's definitely not your passion. And you're lucky to be in a job that pays the bills that sort of links up with the same realm as music, then you're sitting pretty with it all. But yeah, I would say that most of the musicians in Canada probably have some other side hustle of sorts going on aside from they're just trying to pay the bills with their music.
Okay, let's back it up. Small town, Saskatchewan. That's where you're born, raised, kind of grew up. Where did music come from for you? Where did that influence come from? Early age? Was it later in life? How did that kind of all start?
It's always been there, like from the very beginning. Like my parents, so small town Saskatchewan, Loon Lake. Like my parents were in a band that, like when I was basically born into like going to like hall parties where, yeah, they were called the Gypsies, and they were awesome, man. And they'd play like hall parties around. Do you have music of them? None of I really they have nothing recorded. Like it was a lot of it was probably they'd probably play like 4 hours straight of covers. And I think they had a couple of originals, but it was like we're talking about probably like the 70s, you know what I mean? Like pushing into the 80s of playing live music throughout halls and whatnot, and just like playing small town hall parties for like 4 hour ragers where there was a midnight lunch, like the classic, like you know what I mean?
I love it.
And I got to be at a few of those, like went to a few of their like wedding dances that they'd put on, or their like street festivals that they'd have in the summer. And so I was always the little shit kid running around. It was always subject to it. I was at a drum kit in my house, always had microphones. Parents always had music playing, and we were always sort of not forced. It was just very natural, like the ease of like just falling into this realm,
right,
and into a musical background. The building blocks were all there, and it just so happened that I loved it anyway. So it was an easy thing to just sort of become. Yeah.
Did you gravitate towards the guitar, or was it more piano? Like what did you like most right away?
I think that when I really started getting good at any given instrument, like I always had a drum kit, so just that helped with the rhythm, but never was ever very good at it. Enough to like play along to a song or whatever, right? And that was at a very young age. But it was guitar. I started playing guitar when I think I was in grade 5, and just like once, I don't know, after your fingers stop hurting and you can play through a song all the way, and you like the song and it's music you're listening to anyways, and the advent of the internet was happening around there, so you could go and find a Metallica song or whatever you're listening to, those foundational bands that you're a kid and you play electric guitar and you think you should learn. You could find it everywhere. Like, it was all on the internet. It was I dial up.
I totally hear what you're saying about playing a song all the way through, because I took guitar lessons for I don't even know 6, 7, 8 years, and my guitar teacher, he was so big on scales, right? Like dun, 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 dun. And I was like, man, I just want to play Metallica. I want to play something. I want to play something else. I don't want to do scales anymore. And it turned me off so bad, because I'm just like, what am I going to do with scales on the stage? Like, you don't see Slash doing a scale.
No, I think those are all very good foundational pieces to becoming a really good and prolific musician. But I think that it's different types. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think my brain ever really worked that way. I never studied musical theory at all. I'm very much ear by the ear. And I think it, like I said, does take all types. Like most of our band learned by ear, learned by like I said, tablature. Like our guitarist was like, learned all the Iron Maiden stuff via like tab, not via like reading music notes, but reading like what and playing through. And then he just developed an incredible ear. But our drummer, luckily, is like the only guy, and he's like university McEwen grad, like studied in Finland, and like he's incredible. And it's really good to have that resource in the band to actually for him to actually be able to tell you what you're playing. Because a lot of the way that we communicate when we're writing is by like mouthing out what we want to hear. Like my thing would be like, okay, well, when you're doing that thing on the drums, can you do like a, you know what I mean? It's all that shit. And it's stupid. It's a different language, but it's like, and he's like, he could tell you every note that you're trying. You know what I mean?
Wow. So
like, I don't know.
Can you
speaking a different language?
Can you read music at all then?
No. I can read like chords. You know what I mean? Like in that, like, okay, I don't like that's a G. Here's a G chord. Here's a C. Here's a C chord. You know what I mean? Or whatever the hell. So I can do that. But like no, like zero theory. Like it's not how my brain works. I was never good at math. I don't know if that's a connected spot in your brain, if it's left brain or right brain, or how that works. But never.
So
couldn't do it.
Super musical family. Did you guys play then together? Because your sister sings, right? Or what does she play? Does she play anything too?
Danae plays some acoustic guitar.
Okay.
She's got the roots for piano, so she's got the roots to do it. And she sings, but I think it's because I'm the vocalist in Whale and the Wolf, and that was always where I got pushed towards because I could carry a tune off the top, and then so like really like when you're a young kid, when you're in grade 6 or 7, I think it's cool to play the guitar.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's like you can slay and everyone thinks it's cool. But singing, I think, takes this other barrier of I think that there's when you're a young boy,
yeah.
You're kind of embarrassed
it's
of
not
it. You know
cool.
what I mean? Like it's not, you know what I mean? And then, down the road it becomes that, and you realize that obviously like the voice is just the vessel for the lyrics, and people have a deep connection to it. And really it's in a lot of ways the lyrics they're not the entire way that a song will give you goosebumps.
Right.
100%. Like it's a bit of A and B, vocals, lyrics, and then the music. But it's like the vocals, what makes a great song to me, like pop sort of centric song is like, a few words that just hit you hard, and you're like, you just peered into my soul. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But
I think it was
going back to it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like I just think that I was the only one that was willing to be like,
Right.
hey, I'll sing. so I did that, and it just here I am today, I guess. Yeah.
I think it was Justin Timberlake said he started singing falsetto, and all of a sudden, like in high school, girls wanted to go hang out with him and go do this and go do that. So it was the change in high school for him that made. Well, obviously we know where Justin Timberlake is now, but it was the singing falsetto, and so
I tried not to now, especially at this age. Like I'm not pulling the guitar out at parties like unannounced or unasked. Like I just don't want to do that. But like, let's not fool around. When I was in high school, I'd pull it out and play a song for a girl, and it worked.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like it did the trick. You're at that age
Yeah.
where it does. Like it's like whatever. It's you're young and dumb and stuff, and you pull the guitar out, and it's like, I'll pull this tool out and see if this works to maybe get a bit of attention, and it seemed to, but I can't do it now.
So,
you know what I mean? I'll die.
High school was where?
I went to high school in Saskatoon. So I was born in a small town called Loon Lake, Saskatchewan, just like north of Lloydminster.
Okay.
And grew up and like did all my school, like grade 1 to grade 12 in Saskatoon.
Okay.
So high school was BJM High School, North End, Saskatoon.
So Saskatoon though, in high school, you playing music, you're a musician, you can sing. So did you do what every other guy that ever wanted to pick up a guitar in high school be like, we should make a band? Hey, guy, and talk to anybody that wanted to play?
Yeah, it always seemed really natural. I was always in a band. I think I've been in a band since I was in grade 5. Like no matter what, I was always in a group that played music. So it wasn't hard, and it's always been actually the bassist in our band, Lucas, who's from Saskatoon as well. I've been in a band with him technically now since like grade 9 maybe. Like
Cool.
It's quite a few years now. And there was a few off years when he was living there and I was living here or whatever. But at the same time, like he was always in the realm. And he's another guy that would tell you straight up, like, I play the bass because no one else wanted to play the bass. Everyone wanted to pick up the guitar, and everybody there was in my high school there was like everyone and their dog played the guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Same.
Obviously, like there's a reason. It's cool. It's awesome, and like to be able to play the guitar is incredible. But Luke really he figured it out like I did, where it's like there's a bunch of guitar players, but there's no one who plays the bass, and there's no one who's willing to get up and sing. So we kind of just filled those holes, and it seemed to work.
So in high school, did you play like school dances or talent shows or anything?
It was
like
always
what
the
did you
talent show.
What did you guys
talent shows?
And what did you play? What kind of stuff?
Yeah. It was covers. Like it's like that.
Okay.
And I'll go back again. Like I think I don't know, at that age and at that time, I think probably still today, kids picking up the guitar and playing it for the first time. It's like you always want to just rip as hard as you can. So you play the songs where there's a solo and your guitarist can wank. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So we played Van Halen's Eruption. We played Guns N' Roses' Paradise City. We played Paranoid by Sabbath. We played, you know what I mean? Like, God, all the, you name the, like the Metallicas, all the stuff where, once again, like stuff that you got to feign some sort of masculinity at that age. We're like, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like,
and even just being semi-good impressed everybody.
Yes, it doesn't. And it's, to be honest, it still doesn't take a whole lot of magic to impress people with music. Like it doesn't. It's
Okay.
it's you get some people in a pub with a few drinks in them, and you get someone who busts out a cover of a song that everyone can sing along to. They don't necessarily have to be that great, and you'll leave that bar that night and be like, that guy was the best, or that girl was incredible, or blah blah. And obviously, there's those people who are like, will blow you away, and you're like, holy cow! Like, there's some musicianship and there's some incredible talent there. But that's the thing is, with music, like I think it's the fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like you can get away with not being all that prolific, you know what I mean? And still, like, people still feel it and get something from it because music's this magical thing.
So showmanship obviously goes a long ways for sure.
Yeah, oh, totally, 100% it does, and that's goes back to that same thing where you're like, there were in our band we had this guitar player, Mike Fisher, his name is still talk to him here and there, and like he still can rip. Like it sucked because it was like I had been playing the guitar for 5 years at this point, and he was one of those kids who picked it up and like within 6 months he just was the best guy that we knew. You know what I mean?
I hate people like that.
But he just was. You know what I mean? Like and he worked for it. You know what I mean? You'd go to his house and like he was that. You know how you think about like that cliche high school quarterback who like sleeps with his football in his bed. He like I think slept with his guitar in his bed. You know, and I think he's still an incredible guitarist to this day. But there's people who will pick it up like that. And it's you do kind of hate them a little bit, but you're like, they're good, you know?
Okay, so graduate high school. Your next move, are you off to Edmonton right away?
Straight to Edmonton. Yeah,
okay.
I moved when I was 18. Moved out. My sister was living out here working for the Bear, Danae. She's still in radio today down in Calgary.
Okay.
On Virgin Radio in Calgary. So she was working in radio out in Edmonton, and I was like, I gotta go out to Edmonton.
What's the age range there for you guys?
She is 2 years older than me.
Cool. Yeah. So she was already doing her thing, and you were watching it from the outside, and you're like, that's cool.
100%. Yeah. I was like, it sounds like a lot of fun. And I think I really wanted to move after high school and go and like see what else was out there, live alone. Like, it's funny. Like, I remember like my dreams of what I thought living alone, like, and being a grown up was. And I think I remember like envisioning, I'm like, the first thing I'm going to do when I move out of my house and I get my own place is I'm going to have a cigarette on the front porch of my new place. And I remember like doing it, like as soon as I moved out, got my new place, one of the first things, like, this is it, man. This is the moment. And I smoked a cigarette and I was like, I don't like this. And like not living, but like I just don't smoke. I never have smoked. But it was always this thing in my head that like for some reason freedom and being away from your parents who always told you not to smoke was like, I'm gonna smoke because my parents aren't here. And like I did, I never smoked. I've never smoked cigarettes. That's just whatever. It's funny how that worked. But yeah, I also thought that I would at one point buy an entire tube of cookie dough and eat that.
I heard, that's a big fantasy. Thing. For sure.
I don't know why, and I still haven't done that. Like, I still, hey, don't get me wrong. If there's a rollout and I'll eat it, I'll eat like a handful. Even though the old rumors are that it gives you worms. Who knows? Salmonella. I don't know. I'm taking the risk, but I've never eaten a full tube.
No.
I don't think it would. I think at this age, it might do some damage, permanent damage. It
would screw me up for sure.
Yeah,
I'm a Metamucil every night kind of guy right now.
Oh, buddy, I got onto the Muse for a long time.
It's so good.
It does the trick. Yep.
It's so good.
You do the orange?
Yeah. I tried all the flavors, but classic orange. You go back to the orange.
I did the lemonade, the pink lemonade. It was fine. More of a summer Metamucil. Yeah.
That is the best line I've ever heard. So true. So you come to Edmonton. You went to Nate, I'm taking it, for radio school?
Yeah. Went to Nate. Okay. Went through television, actually. And
you went for television?
Yeah, I went through television, and worked at the Bear radio station the whole time that I was in television. Like total nepotism. Like my sister got me the job at the radio station.
Yeah.
So I was working on the street team there, and like came out to the end of television, and obviously like just with the musical background and not really having an avenue to do the type of television that I'd thought I'd like to do. Like I liked that I learned to edit and tell a story through video. And I think that that's a very, I mean, obviously we see that now with TikTok and with whatever, like tell the story in as short fashion. And like everyone's an editing wizard these days and can just like make
It's sick.
You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. Like there's, I'm way behind in that now. But I thought that was doing TV. That's kind of what I liked. And it did serve me. And I'm really happy that I know those skills, but always with radio, it was like music, obviously. Right. And
Yeah.
so
were you always playing still in a band then when you moved to Edmonton? Like when did Whale the Wolf did that all happen kind of when you moved there, or was this years after?
I started playing in a band when I was in college. It was a cover band with my sister Danae, and we were like a cover band called Dusty Panther. It was awesome. And it was like,
I love it.
We'd play pretty off the wall covers that were stripped down acoustically, you know what I mean? And like involved glockenspiels and involved melodicas, and like really it was sort of like a kitschy, campy kind of like band that like made a song like did like Outkast's Hey Yeah, or did
would you Pony Genuine?
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? Like taking a song that's probably very
and then ripping it right apart.
Ripping it apart and bringing it probably like pulling it back a lot. And for a long time we played without a drummer and had to use like, and just like found creative ways to make percussion to build the song dynamically and whatnot. And would play like 4 hours on any given Saturday night at like small little dive bars around Edmonton. And one of like the Nate go-to dive bars was the Blind Duck, and we'd play there all the time. There was a bar in Edmonton called the Hooligans on 124th Street, which is now Northern Chicken, which is like a real good, you know, like hot chicken joint.
Chicken.
Yeah, it's good chicken.
It's good
so that used to be a bar, and we used to play in there all the time. And just all these like dive bars, like like, with regulars that sat at the Wood, and you know what I mean, like bad draft beer and Molson Canadians for days. You know what I mean, like that kind of bar.
100%.
Really, at that point, doing our own sound and bringing a lot of our own like gear in. You know what I mean. Whereas now it's like all that shit's there for us. You know what I mean.
People don't realize how much work goes into that 4-hour show in that dive bar with those guys. How much you guys do ahead of time to get there.
Yep.
Then the day of, then you perform, and then the tear down.
Yeah, it's a long day. Like, doing that was always a really long day, and in a lot of ways, a lot more work. Like you said, like there was just more that went into it, and at the same time, we were learning the whole way through, like through trial and error. Like I'm not a studio mixing guy. I'm not like an audio tech. I don't know why my mixer that I was using back in the day to like mix our live sound, what would make it sound good or bad. It was just all trial and error, and we had probably some nights that were terrible sound and some nights that just were good, and I could never tell you why they were good. It was just like
right.
The room sounds good, I don't know, whatever, right? But it's that trial and error, and I think obviously like cutting your teeth and paying your dues, and I don't know, it was a blast. It was a really, really fun time. And that was, I mean, back in the time where I'd be like, by like the second set, everyone in the band's like half cut, you know what I mean? Because everyone's buying you shots and everything like that. I'm like, I don't even drink before shows anymore, just because, you know, I know what my voice does when I'm drinking, what it does when it doesn't. I've learned that for years now. But back then, so it was a lot of fun and a lot of trial and error. And you don't learn that stuff unless you do it that way from scratch, you know? So
when Whale the Wolf kind of formed then after this.
Yeah. And then there was another cover band. So then my sister moved off to Victoria. So we like kind of started from scratch with new members at the Bear, and Lachlan Cross, who's a big radio guy too. He was in that band, and a couple other guys. We found a guitarist, and we found a mandolin player, and Paul Brown, who was, you know, a main staple in radio in Edmonton here. He played the drums, and it was that was a lot of fun, and we got a lot of shows we probably shouldn't have been playing just purely through the radio connection thing. Like the talent wasn't there, the heart was there, you know what I mean? And we were probably stealing some gigs from some local musicians that probably hated our guts for it, but like, I don't know, like, sorry. You know what I mean? I still think that the core of it, we were a fun band to watch. And we weren't like cock rock. Like it was an interesting, I think we had an interesting sound that, you know, and because we were openers all the time or whatever, we were playing for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Our set was quite varied and it was interesting. And holy cow, they're playing that song, and now they're playing that song, and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, there were a lot of gigs with that band that were, once again, like 3-hour, 4-hour nights of just party, and playing some covers, playing some originals. And that's sort of when we started to branch out, and Lucas playing the bass, started like writing our own music. And that's where like the genesis of learning how to write a song.
So
sort of
what year is that roughly?
Holy cow, probably like 2011, probably 2012 kind of thing. And I've been writing originals since I was 16 or whatever. Like, and I think I've always had a handle on structurally how to write a song, but it wasn't really until Whale started and we got these musicians that were all like blood in, blood out. This is what we're doing. We're putting the time in. We are going to really hone in on our craft and really work on writing these songs. You know what I mean? That we came up with some songs that I don't know, worked, sounded good, were sonically good, were pop centric, and I felt that lyrically I was starting to get into my stride with it, you know?
How does that all come together? Like, where did the songs come from? Do you guys just sit in a room for a day, lock yourself in, be like, we need to crank out 2 songs today, let's do it, that's our goal? Or is it more so, here's what I've written, guys, you want to pick it apart?
Yeah, for us, it seems to always be different. You know, right now over COVID, funny enough, like it's had to be a totally different writing style. Like it's had to be, and it's not particularly the style of writing I like, but it's like, you got to adapt, right? Like sending each other audio over email and being like, here's an idea. Can you build off this? And can you write to this, Ryan?
Okay.
So, and a lot of bands, that's how they do it. And it works really well for them. But it's never been my vibe. Like mine has always been, for the very most part, at the jam space. The guys start playing through something and it's usually very organic. And then they'll be playing through something. We'll find something cool. It seems to be working. And I'll go in the other room and lock myself away and be listening to them playing. And the ideas start cooking for melody and for lyrics and whatnot. And sort of the tone of the song and the vibe of the song usually lends itself to the tone and the themes of what I'm writing lyrically. And then there's other times where I'll come to the table with just a melody that's been in my head. And like I said earlier, like I'm not musically, I can't tell you, like I'm dumb like with that stuff, but I can write a pretty good hook, has always been sort of my strength in the band lyrically. And I can usually come up with something in my head where I'm like, Brandon, try playing. Brandon, our guitarist, like, can you play this? And I'll sing it and he'll play it because he's a genius. Because he can just like take my voice and mimic it on the guitar instantly and play it with a lot of style, and he's good. So I'll come to the band with a tiny idea, and then by the end of our session there, we'll have the bones of the song flushed out, and like we got a song. And then it's, you know, sometimes they just
is that a few hours? Is that days?
I would say you can like we've written songs in like an hour. And that's on the that's on like the short end. But then it's like you're always fighting with it until you record it. You know, you're
tweak,
always,
tweak,
and then you get into the studio with a producer, and they're like, "Well, let's try this in this second." And it's always evolving. Like a song that we're gonna release on our upcoming EP, this song called M, is like we've had that song in our bag since probably 2013. And we're finally going to release it. And it's been through like 5 different iterations. And we've honestly just like, it's evolved because we've got like, not sick of playing it. I've always liked the song, but it's like kind of sick of playing it. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
yeah.
Always the structure and the bones of the song have always, I've thought, been really great. And the chorus has always been great, but I think we've changed it because we're like, let's just try it this way now. And this is fun. And you know what I mean? So no matter what, like, you know, let's just pretend that song took 8 years to write. You know what I mean? Whereas it probably, in a roundabout way, the fundamental structure and the bones of the song probably came out in 30 minutes. But then it took 8 years to get to the point where we were comfortable with putting it out there, you know?
The Cool Jobs podcast is brought to you by Crown Jewel Recruitment.
Hi there, Mark Curtis, Managing Partner at Crown Jewel Recruitment. We are very excited to partner with the Cool Jobs podcast. A little bit about us. We specialize in mid to senior level management positions, all types of industries. We also have entry level all the way through to executive suite. If you'd like to learn more, please check out crownjewelrecruitment.com.
Like Cool Jobs Podcast on Facebook at Cool Jobs Podcast.
When did you guys realize, hey, we're good, we need to start recording music? Like, when did that happen? Was that a realization by all of you, or was it somebody in the band like, guys, we need to start laying this stuff down on tape?
I think that there has to be with anything a blinding ego, which I like. You know what I mean? Like there just is with what we do, and with I think a lot of industries where like, you know, you have to believe that what you're doing is good. Otherwise, like, I don't know, I don't think you'd do it for that long. So I think there's always, you know, so there's that. And then after playing shows, you get on a good night showered with adulation from people coming up after like that song, like blah, blah, blah. And like, they're drunk and whatever. Right. And at the
we're going to hear it. We're going to get it.
I mean, my whole goal in my life forever has been I want to release music and I want to hear my song on the radio. Like that's been a goal of mine since I was probably, I don't know, super young. You know what I mean? Like grade 5, 6,
awesome.
Whatever. So that's always been, I think the band has always, everyone in the band has been very musically minded since forever, since, you know, memory.
So you guys went into Whale and the Wolf for the purpose to record music.
Yes.
You guys all knew you're stepping up here.
At this point, we had enough connections, enough sort of talent, enough people that we knew that would, you know, at that point we had played all over Edmonton, and we knew enough connections in the festival realm, and enough people that we'd impressed enough that they want to have you back. Like that's another thing too, I guess. Like when you're like, okay, how do you know if you're good or not? It's, well, if the bar wants you back. You know what I mean? If at the end of the night, the bar, otherwise it's like, they'll never talk to you again. You know what I mean? Like, well, a lot of that is, of course, like you're bringing a bunch of people out and, you know, they seem to like it. And then the bar sells a lot of booze that night and they're like, they want you back, whether you were great or mediocre, you know what I mean? But I just think, I don't know. I mean, you have to, in music, have, there, like I said, that there's a bit of the ego, and by a little bit, probably in some cases, depending on who it is, a boatload of ego, where it's like, you know, you believe that your music deserves to be heard, and you need to if you're going to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't think that's ego. That's being confident. That's showing your product. I think really.
Yeah, well, that's a nice way of putting it for
sure. So you guys are independent band, right?
Yep.
Still. Okay, so that means not signed to any major labels.
Yeah, we've played around. We've done a couple of releases through labels. And that's been fine and all well and good. But we've always found that I don't know, like these days and the way the industry is, it's always kind of been more of a boon for us to do it on our own a bit.
So quickly walk me through that. Once somebody gets signed, that usually comes with not a payday, but lots of stuff is paid for recording sessions. That's correct. And then with you guys, you're paying your own way, right?
But nobody owns it but us. You know what I mean? So So that's kind of the, like, we are an independent band in that, like, we own, for the most part, most of our songs outright, 100%. They're ours. So any streaming revenue or any royalties that come from the radio play that we've got, it's all to us. We're not splitting it up with someone who did something or didn't do something that you'd want them to be doing. The music industry has changed like 10 times significantly over the last 5 years, where it's like, you know, back in the day, a Guns N' Roses would be given a quadrillion-dollar budget to make a music video and to make a record, and to then that record label would dump so much money into the marketing and would dump so much money into the tour and all, and obviously they'd get paid back, you know, because just the way that the music industry was, people were buying CDs for $18-20 a pop or whatever it was, and obviously when the CD died and streaming came to the forefront, there's not as much money to go around. And I think now that sort of like there is a foothold with the streaming services, and labels are starting to crawl back to, like, labels are making a lot of money again. They are over the like let's just say the last 3 or 4 years, they started to climb back. But they were in a pretty bad spot for quite some years. Like I would say probably when the Napster stuff started happening, that started to, begin the downfall of what the current landscape of the music industry and the role of labels was. And now you think about, gone are the days of Much Music and MTV, and it's just, everything's just so different. Like Much Music used to give bands a shitload of money to go and make a music video, and they didn't even really care what you spent it on. Like you could, now it's like if you're going to get a grant, it's got to be, everything's earmarked and you're not buying anything for personal gain. It's all just to like record it and blah, blah, blah. Whereas like back in the day, like Much Music would hand out these grants and bands would go and buy like cameras and like for their, whatever you want. You could go buy whatever. Like you buy a big screen TV probably and say it's a prop. You know what I mean? Like, so there used to be a lot more money to go around. And you think about MTV and you think about Much Music and all of the advertising revenue that came with, holy shit, when we were kids, we'd watch the Much Music top whatever, you know what I mean? You'd watch The Wedge.
I'd come home Friday after school, and it'd be the countdown on, and that's what would play all night.
You obviously, it goes without saying, everyone can kind of see the writing on the wall with where the ad revenue for that stuff is. It's just not there anymore, right?
For sure.
Radio stations aren't taking as many chances on new music. They like to keep it familiar, and COVID was not a big helper in that realm either, because whatever. Like I said, like what the label was at one point, it's not as beneficial as it once was. That being said, it's still, if you get on with the right people, they have a team behind them. They will get you on the big playlists. They will get you the streams. They will get you connected with the producers, and they will get you on, help to get you on with the agencies that can get you onto the big tours. And so a label is definitely a powerful, powerful, powerful next leveling tool. But it's got to be the right relationship, I think. Yeah.
Right. Because right now, do you guys pay, like you said, grants, but is it all out of your own pocket when you go to record, when you go, like, because you have to hire producers and the rooms and the sound engineers and all that, and then you got to promote it yourself. Like, there's a lot of expense in the back end that I bet you people don't realize. Like, you don't have to tell me the exact, but ballpark me, what does a song cost to record, start to finish, done, in the box, send out?
It depends on your producer and what they want to charge and what they're doing. Like, let's just say that like one of the songs, let's just go with like our song Veins. Holy shit. I would say probably once it's all said and done and promoted and everything's out, it's probably like for something like that. Yeah, I don't even want to know like all the numbers, but like over 15 grand. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, yeah. And then like, but that's like the production of it, and then the mastering, and then the music video that you got to do.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, like, we are in that, like, the reason that, like, with not having a label, we are lucky enough, and I think a lot of bands are having to be how we are these days, and we're just lucky enough that we were hit the ground running with it and had the talent within the band. But everyone's got to have their own job. Everyone's got to, like, I'm the booking, in a way, I'm like the booking agent for the band. We have an incredible videographer, photographer, graphic designer who's doing all of our branding, all of our socials, all of our music videos within the band. Pro bono. It's costing us a bit of money, but a music video like our music video for Veins, just the video alone probably cost us $1,000. But if you were to pay someone to do that, it would probably cost like $15,000. You know what I mean? Like, you could, and like
so
videos
expensive,
are stupid expensive, and everything's so expensive. So like I said, like, we have guys in the band who are willing to and able to do all this stuff. And I think a label these days won't pick you up unless you are self-sufficient. You know what I mean? Like, and we very much have all of those tools within the band. So yeah, basically now it's like a label doesn't want to have to put a bunch of stock into you and not want to spend a bunch of money on resources. Like, can you do this on your own? Then we'll pick you up and we'll help you out on the back end with getting you the connections you need to get here or there or whatever. Right?
You said if the partnership is right, is that still a goal for Whale and the Wolf to?
Oh, totally.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And I think you need to. There, back in the day, like there was this deal called a 360 deal. And like, let's say in my head, I remember always hearing it around like the year 2007, 2008, when labels still had, like their hands in it all, and there was still much music, and there was still MTV, and the internet was whatever, it was doing its thing. But there, and it was like, basically they would take the band and, basically, I don't know if the genesis of calling it a 360 deal was that they'd take you around the globe, you know what I mean? But like, you weren't making any, like, everything that you did, the label pocketed, you know what I mean? Like, there was a point where, and I think, you could hear the horror stories going back into the 80s and into the 70s and into way back since time immemorial with labels where they completely took artists for a ride, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I just remember like stuff like that where it's like, you're making a deal with the devil, where it's like, you wrote this song, but it's not your song. None of it is. You know what I mean? Like, and hearing the stories about the labels that would legit say, here's $100,000 to make your album, and you do that, and you get, the best producers in the world, and you're down in LA and you're recording in these historic studios, and then the label shelves the album because it's not really where they want to go at the moment, or they have another band on their label that's kind of doing what you're doing, and they're kind of going in that direction. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've been privy with, getting to know the people I've gotten to know over the years with it all, where you just hear the horror stories. And I would hope that now that bands have had to learn to go fishing, you know what I mean? In a way, like, catch the fish and feed yourself for a lifetime or whatever, that there's a bit more leverage going into it. You hear like they were the opposite of a horror story with like a band like Arcade Fire, where it's like they were 100% independently owned. And I don't know what the hell they're doing now, whether they're getting label support or what they're doing. I probably should be up on the times with that, but they just like, they were kind of that one of those stories, those feel goods where they're like, they did it all. They collected it all. They still ended up going on these giant tours, and they just ended up sort of making a better deal for themselves,
right? Because
they proved themselves that they can do it anyway. So just leverage, So I don't know. That's all. I don't know. There's a million ways to do this, and there's no right way.
No.
And there's probably a million wrong ways.
Have you been close to signing?
We did one of our songs we did with a label out of Amsterdam called Night Vision, who is a subsidiary of Warner Music.
Okay.
And like I said, they own that song, like 80% of that song for another 30 years, and like, it's our highest streaming song, but did it, I don't know how many wheels it cranked for us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
And I mean, whatever, at a certain time, and it worked for us. And it's still, to be honest, I would do it over again. Like, I would do that again. Like, it worked out for us, and it's still, I don't know, just seeing your music and seeing like the footprint and the weird countries that it's getting played in, because it's a label out of Europe. And so like, we were on all these playlists in Germany and all these playlists in Denmark and weird places, you know what I mean? That we haven't toured, and we have no footprint. And that's the beauty of streaming, is that you can be heard all over the world.
Right.
So it is magic like that, but I don't know.
Have you got States airplay?
Yes. So right now, our song Veins is on satellite radio on The Verge, which is actually like Canadian, it's Canadian. I think it's all Canadian, like up and coming bands, but it's on XM satellite radio. So I've got a cousin in Texas who texts me every day with screen grabs of like, it's on again. It's awesome. So it's like really, really, like that's awesome. And yes, aside from that, we released a bunch of music into the US last year in 2020, and got played all over hell and back in the US on all kinds of different stations, all over the place. So it was, I don't know, like, the weirdest places on the planet that we haven't toured to, and we got radio play through a promo company that we hooked up with out of LA down there, and they just pushed it all over the place.
Cool.
Some cool connections and some cool stories and some cool,
Is a plan to tour states at all eventually? Is it tough to? You guys all have day jobs, right? So like, do you have to take 2 months off and go do that, or how would that work?
Yeah. You'd need to. Yeah, like you just do it. Like I think everybody has always in the band pushed the limits with their job that they have of like
I really need
just
this
like-
Thursday off. I just need Thursday, Friday. That's
yeah,
it.
honestly, like a lot of times, and it's like through the good grace of a lot of senior management, we've gotten away with going on tour for X amount of weeks and come back to a job. You know what I mean? And
That's awesome.
so yes, and it's always like you're always preparing yourself for a conversation that might end in like no. And you're like, well, I have to.
Well, the band's
what does
going.
this
I'm going.
mean? Yeah. So yeah, it's always I don't know. Like it's you got to do it. You have to do it.
Okay,
So,
let's talk
yeah.
some music. Some of your songs, so good. Your vocals incredible. I totally forgot to thank you, number one, to be the official band of the Cool Jobs podcast. I really love you guys, and so thank you, number one, for that. I really appreciate it. But let's dive into some tunes. Let's start with Domino. Okay, tell me about it.
The song itself was one of the first songs that we wrote as Whale and the Wolf way back. I bet you we wrote it in like 2013 or 2014. Came really easy. That was a song that fell out of us in probably like one jam, and then it really, took shape. It was another one of those things where it's like the song's there, the bones are there, the melody's there, the lyrics are very close, and then taking it into the studio, I have to cram. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, so taking it into the studio, it's like, I like this word over this word, and this is a little jumbly here. How do we want to change that? And then on the production side, it's all these bells and whistles that get added after. But lyrically and theme-wise, that is for sure always a song that I think I wrote. None of the songs that I write, for the very most part, are like autobiographical.
Okay.
They're not about my love life. I have a very solid as a rock relationship with my partner in life. So like, a lot of the best music and songs are about heartbreak and turmoil and what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Luckily, I knock on wood, I haven't dealt with a whole lot of that in my life. So I've always found that writing about maybe other people that I've surrounded myself with, it has always sort of like
totally
sort of been a bit of inspiration and I think that song Domino has always been about, the backdrop has always been Saskatoon. Always been that. I can always like in my head think about the place in Saskatoon where a lot of the places that I mentioned in that song would maybe be hypothetically. Yeah. And then it's probably about, some people that I grew up with that, couldn't get out of their own way decisions wise, and the people they hung out with, and some of the wrong turns they took when it was just so blatantly obvious the right turn to take. But that's growing up, baby.
I have a random question. Are you a Saskatoon band? Or are you guys an Edmonton band? Or are you just a Prairies band?
I feel like when we go out, I feel like we have 3 hometown shows that we can play. And I think that they are in Edmonton, and I think they are in Saskatoon, and I think that they're in Regina. Like I just think that those are the 3 places where we've always been so well received, and there's a lot of friends, family there, and a lot of history throughout the band of the members who have done a lot of time in those places. And a lot of I think the music, obviously thematically, and the backdrop that we've written about and everything that we've done and how we are and who we are and why our music is what it is because of the place that we grew up and cut our teeth playing music in. So I'd say we are a band based out of Edmonton, and it's a hometown. Like we're a hometown band out of Edmonton, but we go to Saskatoon and it's a hometown show.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Next song is
Maybe we just don't belong. I say we set it on fire.
Walk me through this one.
We wrote this song. Actually, we wrote this one backwards from how we typically do it.
Okay.
Where we wrote the chorus first, like the hooky chorus. That was the first thing that got written. It was Brandon on the guitar, just playing that guitar thing, and us writing that chorus. Usually that doesn't happen. We don't, yourself, like, I think that a lot of producers and a lot of people who write, songwriters would tell you, you want to write your hook and you want to write your chorus first and then build around that. Yeah. And it's just that's never been how I or the band has done it. It's always been building up to it and then the chorus seems to sort of write itself and tell the story because we've built up to it from the verse and what the verse was doing. So anyway, that was a rare one where we wrote the chorus first. We produced that one in Edmonton here, and the producer was Danny Craig, who was the drummer for the band Default. He's an awesome dude. Like, he's such a great guy, and he's like forever in the DNA of the band. Every producer who, you know, comes and helps you and really helps you, because we don't have the talent to do what they do. You know what I mean? Like, they have this skill that, once again, like when I'm talking to our drummer and he speaks a different language than I do musically, you talk to a producer and there's another language that I don't understand, and there's another total like you need to like an audio engineering background. And I don't know, like, Johnny, you probably have a bit of that, like quite a bit of that, because you produce, right?
Yeah, I have, but when you get into music, that's a whole new world.
There's so many buttons.
They ask so many questions, and they're like, and then I'm supposed to know the answers to this stuff. I'm like, yeah.
I would say that you are far and beyond a much better producer than like most people. And then, yes, of course, like on the taking a guitar and getting the tone out of it that you want. It's just a different thing. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like a pilot doesn't know how to be the mechanic on the engine on the plane, but he needs to know how the buttons work to make it go, you know? So, quickly, when you record a song, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know. Yep.
Drums first, drums go down, then bass, guitar, singing, or is singing always last?
Kind of all over the map. Yeah. I mean, the way we've seemed to do it over the last few sessions is we will go into the studio and record this last EP with our song Veins and with our song Midnight Riot. That was the closest to off the floor in a way that we've recorded.
Okay.
Like, kind of like that's a stretch saying off the floor, because it's not. But where we recorded we recorded the bass and the drums together off the floor. And it seemed to, I don't know, to me it was the first time with our recording and with what we were doing that it came across as a little more organic, maybe to the naked ear. Nothing is like, you know, like everything in the world is overproduced to the nines now. And but it was the first time. So I guess the first thing that we did there in those, you know, in most of our recordings is a scratch track is what we would call it, where the band is all hooked up. Like, the guitarist is here, he's got his set of headphones. The drummer's out there, he's got a million mics around his kit, placed where they are. Our bassist is here, our keyboardist's over here. Everyone's got a set of headphones, and we play through our song, you know, to a click to get the timing right. And so the song's there.
Track?
You know what I mean? So the song's there, and then you go and lay the layers on after the actual tracks. You know, sometimes you can nail your part in that scratch track, you know, session. And I bet you we could have ran a lot of certain elements just off of that scratch and would have worked. But it's like, everyone's a perfectionist. And it's like, we're going to go over that guitar part for 10 hours tonight.
I was going to say, are those long days?
Yeah.
Is it exhausting?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes some of the songs come out easier than others, but like, holy, like, I would say that, like, you know, the guitar, and because once again, perfectionists and really wanting to get a certain tone and it goes through so many different channels. And once again, like, engineers speak a different language, and they found an amp at the studio that we did it at that ran through another amp, and then we needed the right mic to process it, and it needed to go through the right whatever, and then we needed the right pedal setup, and then in the end it needed to, like, it's insane. And then you need to like I don't like being around there for when they're tracking guitar, because my brain blows up, you know?
Right.
And I had vocally, things come decently easy, and they should. But then, like, going and recording some backing vocals over my, like, sometimes it's just like you want to beat your head. Our drummer is like a freak, and he can get, you know, he can nail shit on a few takes, and he just can. But then again, once again, you go back through the engineer, and it's like, oh, but we ran the snare through this vintage amp from the 70s. And like the weird, like running it through a guitar amp. You know what I mean? Like shit that I'm walking into the studio, I'm like, what are you guys doing in here? I don't understand.
Do you get worried about that then? So you're creating the sound in the studio, and then when it goes, you haven't played a live show in a little while, but when you go to play live now, it may not be exactly the same as the studio. Does
that's
cross your
always
mind?
terrifying. And it's you know what sucks is okay. Obviously you're so happy. You should be. You are hopefully very happy with the final product that comes out of your recording, and it should sound bigger, better, flashier, shinier, crisper. Right. No matter what, always in a recorded session. No matter what, always, always, always.
For sure.
And then you go to your jam space, and you're like, okay, we added these elements that weren't originally in it. We play this part different here. And the first practice back where you're trying to replicate what you guys are doing on the recording, it sucks so bad. And then like you get there, like, and you get like we are when you come see us live. It's like the recorder. Like we did
awesome.
We did a live stream from.
So you almost have to relearn, hey?
You do. Yeah. And you need to change things. You need to change a lot of shit. It's no one likes doing it. You know you have to do it, and it's sometimes the more grueling part of being in a band is, and you know what? Like, I can go on.
I was gonna say one more song.
Kills me.
One more song. I want to talk about Veins. It was a huge hit, getting airplay everywhere. Check it out right now.
You got me fiending for that first high, but the feeling's not the same.
Okay, where did this one come from?
This was a funny one. If you want to talk about writing process where stuff just falls out of thin air. The genesis of the song, I was sweeping my floor in my old condo, and the like first few lyrics just fell out of thin air. And I always find that like I've written a few songs while going on, you know, thematically, lyrically, whatever, going for a run. Like there's that rhythmic thing where you're running and there's a bit of a time and stuff will just creep into the forefront of my brain. And I'm like, thank you, whatever just happened there. And you write it down. You put it into a voice recorder so you do not lose it, because a melody will come into your head and out, and you'll never remember it ever again. So we record all of our jams now because things can just fall out by accident, and you need to like capture that and remember that. So anyway, that one came while I was sweeping a floor, and whether it was like the rhythmic pattern, and it's like I said, like the genesis, the very beginning, the idea of that song that turned into what it is now. Holy shit, the pathways it went through to get from me sweeping my floor to the song that it is had to pass through a million channels that made it a bajillion times better than how it did I probably still have the voice recorder memo, and it probably sounds like shit when if you were to listen to it, but it's there. The idea is there.
Cool.
And take it to the jam space and try and like tell the guys a couple of little elements, and then like the band is like none of this stuff. Like I'm musically challenged. They take it and they make it good. It's not good when it comes from me. The idea comes sometimes from the genesis of something that just I've woken up from our song Midnight Riot. I woke up from a sleep, and that just like in a weird waking up and not really having my brain fully. Some of the stuff came from just like being in this dumb state, and it's like record some of this stuff, like go write this now. And like I said, like the song would suck, and then the band makes it good, and then production makes it good, and all that. So we've written songs many different ways, but that Veins was one that just fell out.
And Veins, I don't know how you decide, but you pushed it quite well, promoted it well. I think it did very well, Canada, North America. So how do you pick and choose which goes? This one we're pushing, this one we're not going to push.
There's no right way to do that stuff, but and it's all a democracy in our band, very much so. And then you're talking to your producer, and I'm lucky to have some great connections in radio that I can pass it to some people who are music directors, and it's just pure and simply like, what do you think of these? Where's your head? Like, if there's any chance of this doing anything, what's the right foot to put forward? And man, you can hear all different answers, and you need to go with your gut no matter what. And, whether we did what we did right or wrong, I feel comfortable with the way the order that we're putting this EP out. I feel good about it. Not gonna, like, no regrets with any of it. Given the circumstance of COVID, whatever for sure. I feel like we came out of COVID a more successful band than some people who just like, it sucks. Like some bands that we used to play with just don't anymore, you know, like, and I get it and I understand, but, yeah, I don't know. I guess to go back to that question, there's no right way, but I just feel like Veins was clear in a way, the song on the EP that was kind of be the flagship, and that when we sent our demos to our producers out of Nashville, that was the one, that was the Veins, just the like shitty Jam Space recording that we made of that song was the reason they flew from Nashville to Canada to record with us with Veins. Yeah.
I was going to say, do they come here or you go there?
They came here and they had a blast. They had never been here. They actually, it was funny. They came like during summer solstice in 2019. So, you know, they're from Nashville, and coming here. And the first night they got here, it was one of those nights where it was just light until 11:30 at night, and it like blew their minds because they'd never seen that before. And I'm like, that's awesome. You kind of take it for granted. And they ate a poutine every day that they were here. And they just like all checked a lot of the boxes off of, you know, like if you're not from here, you might do that stuff. But yeah, that was that. I guess that's why Veins front and center. Like the producers, like that's the shit.
Awesome.
We'll come record with you. That's the reason. Let's build some songs around it. Yeah.
Craziest thing you've ever seen at a live show?
I'll keep it. There's a lot of stuff that's like, you know.
Okay, a show that you guys played.
Yeah. Like
okay.
Like a lot of just like nudity flying around out there. Like, okay,
happens often.
Yeah, no, not often, but it's happened.
Okay.
If you know what I mean, like random stuff like that. I think you know what I mean, where you're like, okay, that's happening in front of me. To each their own. A lot of, you know, and then I always find we just, you know, playing Halloween shows is always a weird thing.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Where,
for sure.
Where you're like, the Joker is making out with Tiger King or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and then you're like, that's interesting.
Yes.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of like, you know, the cliche failed crowd surfing moments, the sort of the tiny little dramas that you'll see unfold in front of your eyes that you got to kind of like focus on what you're doing. But I can turn my brain off enough from the song to kind of focus on like, hey, Luke, did you see, you know, pink shirt up front? Like, she wasn't happy. You know what I mean? Like nothing with us, but like just something that was happening. Just, you know, you get a funny view being on stage. You get to see a lot of things.
For
you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Lemon Stage.
Yes. So Lemon Stage.
How did that, I guess for people that don't know, what is it? And then B, how did you guys get there? And C, how amazing was it?
Lemon Stage is this like fantastic new platform, idea, philosophy with music where it's about artist development. It's based out of, I guess, the first and like sort of the beta model for it was based in Toronto at El Macombo. And the idea is for there to be a Lemon Stage in every sort of major market across Canada when all is said and done, that is going to allow on, you know, whether it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday, any given week for, you know, emerging artists to get, you know, a spot that is highly marketed, highly publicized. And like, these are the bands in your town that are doing something, come out and see them before you know, can't see them on a small stage or whatever. You know what I mean? It's this company called Lemon Entertainment. They're based out of Vancouver and out of Toronto. Jessica Lemon is the sort of the founder of it, and she ran the Lemon Stage at the Warped Tour for years and years and years and years. And it was always one of the side stages that was like these up and coming bands. Yeah. So like bands like the Beaches would have been on the Warped Tour Lemon Stage back in the day, like, and now they are where they are. They're giant. You know, Lemon had their kickoff at the El Macombo in Toronto, which is this brand new revamped glitzy venue in Toronto. That's a historic venue that just got a bajillion-dollar upgrade, and it's the most incredible stage and incredible, just beautiful, shiny venue. And we were just lucky enough that we just had some connections, made some friends with the right people, and impressed the right people, I guess, at the right time. And they wanted to have us be a part of like their opening week festivities. And we got to go out to Toronto in November, and COVID cases were quite low at the time. And we got to play a live show in a club, which was not happening that often over the last 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
And got to work with some incredible industry professionals and some of the best sound guys on the planet who were like going through this brand new board in this brand new venue that like everything is like more high tech and expensive than it needs to be in that venue for a reason. So like we were playing through like a mixing console and like through a front of house like speaker stage that probably could have made noise for a festival, outdoor festival, but it's in this small-ish, medium-sized venue, and it's like the guys are pushing the fader up to 1. You know what I mean? And they're like, and it's like, holy shit, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
It's just the best.
So Lemon Stage, Lemon Entertainment. That's the idea. Is it's about
Cool.
it's about sort of up and coming talent development, and I mean with where we're at with music right now, it's just such a. I think it's going to be an important group and company and philosophy going forward.
Yeah.
And we just got kind of in on the ground floor, and they're helping us out with a lot of bookings going forward.
With new music and everything, does it piss you off when you see a TikToker all of a sudden blow up? Next thing you know, they're on Ellen. Next thing you know, they're playing at the Grammys. Like, you guys are grinding so hard all the time, pushing, spending your own money, $15,000 on a music video, whatever. And then this happens. Like, do you get like, oh, why is that not us?
No, and I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I think pop music, you could always say, you know, forever, and maybe more so in the last few years or whatever, depending on who it is, depending on what they're doing. There's always a ton of incredibly talented musicians, and there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of everything that goes into that and whatnot. But I think just at the base level on TikTok, like, the song still needs to be catchy, and the song still needs to be well written. There, people aren't. I mean, then again, like people are attracted to stuff that you're just like, why do people like this? This is garbage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like a lot of these songs coming off of TikTok and a lot of the artists getting discovered on it, you're like, okay, I see why there are legs on this. Like it's got it's a hooky, catchy song. I think as a band, it's not as prevalent. I think the pop side of it, like, you know, with TikTok and whatnot, and like just as acoustic singer-songwriters, like you can get your music out there, and if you've got like a good song, it's got to still be a good song. You know what I mean? For it to like make waves for the masses, and it's got to say something. So, you know, all the power to them. I think as far as a band is concerned and what we're doing, you can't learn to play on a big stage and do the networking and do the ins and outs that come with a gig day. You're not learning that on TikTok. You're learning that through terrible mistakes over years of regret.
Playing those small bars, right?
And making a million mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah.
And playing shitty small bars. You're right. So, I think you can still brand your band, and you can get super far on TikTok, and especially in a realm right now where there's not a lot of live music happening, you can probably like make hay while the sun shines in that realm. But when it comes to playing live shows, there's still such a craft that you need to still learn and cut your teeth on. And so, I mean, I hope that kind of answers that. Yeah, I don't want to crap on what people like.
Totally. Ryan, man, what an awesome hour flew by. Like,
I don't think I even answered half your questions. Maybe I talked too much.
No, it's so good. What's hopefully 2022 is great for Whale and the Wolf. You know, like we talked, COVID. Everybody says hopefully it's ends soon. Like hopefully it does. Is there anybody booking anything right now, or is everybody just hanging back? There's
all kinds of stuff being booked, but there's as much stuff getting canceled. You know what I mean? And we've had a lot of stuff that's come up. We have a show right now that I don't want to say it yet, but it's been postponed twice now, and now it's finally like we've got another tentative date for it, but you don't want to say anything, you know, and it's not actually official with the actual, you know, company putting it on. It's a really cool big show for us, and we're excited about it, but yeah. Okay.
Well, as soon as you make it, it's on the podcast. We're going. Yes. You got it here.
Yeah, the 100%. Idea is when things allow it, we are going to play a million trillion shows throughout this year if we can. So that's the idea.
Ryan, you have one cool job.
That's the name.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. Cool Jobs Podcast brought to you by Mark Curtis at Crown Jewel Recruitment. With over 200 people hired, Mark at Crown Jewel Recruitment will find the right people for you. Contact him today, 780-984-8800, or email mark at crownjewelrecruitment.com. Later, Ryan.
The Cool Jobs Podcast is brought to you by Crown Jewel Recruitment. Have a cool job or know someone that does? Let us know. Email Johnny@cooljobspodcast.com.
You got me fiending for that first high, but the feeling's not the same.